بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجه. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last week we began with session 1 of Islamic family law. And I explained all of the topics that we will go over, inshallah, and we will mention some basic arguments and reasoning for each law. So we said that we'll speak about the laws of hijab, who are allowed to see without the hijab, which individuals we cannot see without the hijab, laws of marriage, laws of divorce, and laws of children. So we began by speaking about the laws of sight. Which individuals are considered your mahram, meaning if I'm a male, I can see them without hijab, and which individuals are your non-mahrams, ajnabi, the individuals that I'm not allowed to see without hijab. If I'm a female, I have to wear hijab from men. So when we spoke about the mahrams, we said there's 3 different categories of mahram, 3 ways an individual can be your mahram. The first we said is through what? Blood relationships. Your biological parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, so on and so forth. And then we spoke about the second way, which was what? Through marriage, exactly. When you get married, your spouse, your father-in-law, mother-in-law, they become halal, mahram. Today, inshallah, I will speak about the third way. But before I begin, I just want to go over a few points, some questions that were asked last week, and then we will begin with today's topic. Point number 1, the father's wife, your father's wife. So basically your stepmom. The question was, if your father divorces her, does she stay mahram? Yes. She still stays mahram, meaning you can see her, you can't marry her till the rest of her life. As long as the father does the katb kitab, the aqd, the marriage contract, that's it. That lady, which is your stepmother, is halal for you forever. Number 2, the other opposite example, your stepfather. So let's say my mother is divorced and she marries someone, and I'm a female. My stepfather is halal also, even if my mother is divorced. Now, the other question that was asked last week was, if the father's wife, so the stepmother, was divorced before I was born. So let's say before I was born, my father married some lady, and then he divorced her, and then he married my mother, and he had me. So now that I'm born, my ex-stepmother was divorced before I was born. Is she mahram? Yes, she is mahram. So as long as the father marries someone, that's it. She is my mahram. Number 3, the father's wife is not mahram upon the father's son-in-law. Let me say that again. The father's wife, so the stepmother, is not mahram upon the father's son-in-law. So let's say my father goes and marries someone. That lady, which is my stepmother, I have a sister. My sister's husband, so he's the son-in-law. Can the son-in-law see the stepmother, meaning his wife's stepmother? No, they're not halal. Because the question that was asked before divorce, after divorce, it doesn't matter. The son-in-law and the stepmother have nothing to do with each other. They are like ajnabi, meaning 2 random individuals, not mahram. And finally, number 4, the father is not mahram. So the mother's husband, this somebody asked last week, the mother's husband, let's say my mother or even my grandmother, after divorce, after she was a widow, she gets married to a man. Is that man halal on my wife? No. So the daughter-in-law and the stepfather, they are not mahram, whether marriage, divorce, whether the daughter-in-law is married or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, divorced or not. So this is not amongst the relationships that are mahram.
Sayyidina, just to confirm, my grandfather's brothers will be mahram to me, yeah?
Your grandfather's brothers, yes, they are your uncles. They are your great uncles.
What about my grandfather's stepbrother?
Your grandfather's stepbrother. Well, it depends what you mean by stepbrother. If your grandfather and his stepbrother share a father or a mother, then yes, that still
Mhm.
makes him your uncle, your great uncle. But if you mean by stepbrother something else, he was adopted, then no.
Oh,
So
okay.
as long as they have the same mother, the same,
Mhm.
as long as they have the same mother or the same father, or if they have different mothers and different parents, their parents just got married,
Uh-huh.
then no, then that person is not halal upon you. So now that we're done with all the rulings regarding the second category, the second criteria, which was mahram through marriage, let's move to number three. Number three, we said through breastfeeding. A third way someone can become your mahram is through breastfeeding. Now, what do we mean by breastfeeding? Listen carefully, brothers and sisters. When a woman breastfeeds a child, so a woman has a child of her own, she has milk that she's supposed to give to her child, but let's say she has too much milk. She can breastfeed others. When that woman breastfeeds an unrelated random child for a certain amount of time, there's conditions, I'll get to that inshallah. That child that she nurses, that she suckles, will become like her child, meaning mahram. She no longer has to wear hijab from that child. Not only her sisters become mahram because her sisters become like the aunts. So whatever we said regarding, remember the 7 biological mahrams, they will all apply to this child as well. So this nursing child will become like the biological son of this nursing mother. So if he was her biological son, how many biological mahrams he would have? 7. Remember, mother, so aunt, grandmother, niece. Those 7 individuals, the blood relationship, 7 individuals that we mentioned, they will also apply to him. So he will be just like the nursing mother's biological children. If it was a girl that was nursed, the nursing mother's husband, which we call the nursing father. Now he's not nursing, but we just call him father through nursing, father through suckling. He becomes halal. He becomes mahram for the girl. Why? He's like the father. So this is what we mean by mahram through breastfeeding. So when the mother breastfeeds the child with the conditions that I'll get to, that child becomes like your family. The laws of mahram apply to him. So you just added a kid to your family. And I'll get to that, inshallah. We'll get to that, and we'll get to adoption also. Adoption by itself does not create any mahram. There has to be breastfeeding. So when we say mahram through breastfeeding, 2 laws will apply. Number 1, marriage. That nursing child can no longer marry the family members of the nursing mother and the nursing father. So he cannot marry the lady that nursed him. She's like his mother. He cannot marry her children because those children will be his sisters through nursing. He cannot marry the nursing mother's sisters because they will be the aunts. He cannot marry the nursing mother's mother. That will be the grandmother, and so on and so forth. So this is the first law that applies if a mother nurses a child. Is that they can no longer get married. And number 2, they become mahram, meaning they can see each other without hijab. So the 7 groups that we spoke about, they will apply to this nursing child as well. However, the laws of inheritance do not apply. Listen carefully. So if the mother dies, this nursing child has absolutely no stake in the mother's inheritance. Why? Because the hadith told us. The hadith told us that rida, suckling, if you do it the Islamic way, it only has 2 effects. Number 1, mahram, they can see each other without hijab. Number 2, they can't marry. The laws of inheritance do not apply. The laws of maintenance, meaning nafaqa, that I'll speak about. Sometimes you have to spend on your biological child, or your biological child has to spend on you. This does not include a nursing child. What is the basis of this entire third category, that someone becomes your mahram through breastfeeding? It's mentioned in the Quran and it's mentioned in the hadith. Where in the Quran? This is the verse in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 4, verse 23, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ Allah speaks about the individuals that you're not allowed to marry. Your mother, وَبَنَاتُكُمْ, your daughters, biological. And then Allah says, وَأُمَّهَاتُكُمُ اللَّاتِي أَرْضَعْنَكُمْ, and your mothers that breastfed you. See, the Quran calls them mothers, not the ladies, not the woman the mother that breastfed. She's not your mother, technically, but the Quran considers the lady that breastfeeds you as your mother. And then وَأَخَوَاتُكُم مِّنَ الرَّضَاعَةِ, and your sisters through rada'ah, meaning the lady that breastfed you has a daughter. That daughter is now your sister, but not your biological sister. She is your sister through rada'ah, through suckling and nursing. So this is a verse in the Quran. Yes.
So in these terms, would the laws of sight also apply to touch? Like, for example, I can, hug my sister.
Of course. Exactly. Whatever you're allowed to do with your biological mother, sister, aunt, you can do with your nursing mother, sister, aunt. Exactly the same. I said the only thing that doesn't apply, remember, is inheritance and the laws of maintenance, of spending. But the laws of hijab, all of them, your nursing mother is exactly like your mother. You can hug her, you can touch her, you can see her without hijab, just like your mother. Yes, and he also had a mother that nursed him, Halima Sa'diyah. She nursed him, so it was halal for him to see her. We have many instances throughout history, and with the imams also that happened, because remember, back then, breastfeeding was very, very common for other ladies to breastfeed your child. Why? Because the mother has no milk. There's another lady in town, she has a lot of milk, and she can breastfeed others. Now it's become less common. Why? Because of baby formula. Now if the mother has no milk, she doesn't have to go and find someone, put an ad on Craigslist, please, mother is wanted. No, just go to the store and buy the formula, the baby formula. And so that's why the laws of breastfeeding that we're speaking about, they're going extinct now. But if we would have had this class, just a second, if we would have had this class 50 years ago, every one of you would have said, oh yeah, you know what? I have a brother or a sister or a cousin or something, through breastfeeding. Because almost every lady would, throughout her life, she would breastfeed an unrelated child, and that child would become part of the family. So this is the verse in the Quran. It's clear that Allah calls the lady that breastfeeds you your mother. So that means you can see her. And that's why you can't marry her, the Quran says. And also, the daughter of that lady is your sister. And also the hadith. This is an authentic hadith that Shaykh al-Saduq, that is Sahih, mentions in the book of Al-Faqih, Man la yahdharuhu al-Faqih. And it's narrated from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he says, يَحْرُمْ مِنَ الرِّضَاعِ مَا يَحْرُمْ مِنَ النَّسَبِ. Meaning, what is haram through blood relationship is also haram through breastfeeding. Meaning, what is haram through blood relationships? Marrying your mother. So marrying your mother through nursing is haram too. What is haram through blood relationship is what? Marrying your sister. So the same thing, apply it to what? Apply it to breastfeeding as well. Now, even though the Prophet said what is haram, which means marriage, he did not speak about the laws of sight, but remember we said usually if you can't marry someone, you can see them. And at the same time, it seems like what the Prophet is saying is that blood relationships are like nursing relationships. Whatever applies there, applies here. So now that we understand, let's mention a couple of rulings regarding this. Ruling number one. If a woman breastfeeds two unrelated children, so she has two friends, she breastfeeds X's son, and then she breastfeeds Y's son. Those two individuals, they will become her children. But are they also siblings or no? So one of them is a girl, one of them is a boy. She breastfeeds one of her friends' boys and one of her friends' girls, and they are unrelated. But because they share the mother, the breastfeeding mother, do they become mahram or no? They become mahram and siblings as long as the father is the same, meaning the nursing father. So for example, if she is married to Zayd, she breastfeeds a child, a boy, and then she gets divorced. And then she marries Amr, and she breastfeeds a girl. So now she breastfed a boy and a girl, but from two different husbands. Are they mahrams? No. As long as the father is the same, the nursing father is the same, they can become siblings. So they can still get married. If she got married, had, to a man, and she breastfed and then divorced, and then she breastfed through another marriage, those two children can marry each other. Now, both of them are her children, but they themselves are unrelated. This is in the ahadith. The ahadith mentioned that sahibul laban means the nursing father, has to be the same. If he is the same, they become relatives. They become siblings. And that's why, listen to this example. Imagine I have two wives at the same time, and they bring me a boy and a girl, and they say breastfeed them. I give one to this wife, one to this wife. They become siblings. Because it's the same father, different mothers. So having different nursing mothers doesn't do anything if the father is the same. Having the same nursing mother does nothing if the father is too. So basically, it's all about the father. Ruling number 2, a biological, listen, this is a little delicate. You have to pay attention, please. Pay attention closely so you understand what we are saying. A biological father cannot marry the daughters of the nursing mother. And this is mentioned by the ulama like this. لا ينكح أبو المرتضع في أولاد صاحب اللبن. I'll say it again. The biological father cannot marry the daughters of the nursing mother. Does everyone understand that? Is it clear? So let's say there's a biological father. He has a child that needs milk. He takes it to a nursing mother. Tells her, please breastfeed my child. She says, okay. She breastfeeds him. The child has another mother now, second mother. He has siblings. He has sisters through rada'a, right? Through breastfeeding. Are those sisters halal upon the biological father, the real father of the child? Can they get married? No. Let's word it like this. They cannot get married. So the father, let's say in 10, 20 years from now, he says, you know what, I want to marry my son's sister through rada'a, through suckling. Can he or no? Why? They're not related to him. So it's the laws of the son. What does it have to do with the father? The father did no nursing. His son is now a part of another family, not him.
But he's still part of that family too, which is the biological father.
Exactly. So he's part of this family and he's part of that family. But the father who's in this family has nothing to do with the members of that family.
Unless they're female and it's the same nursing father.
For the child, yes. For the child, he has now all these new mahrams. But his father has nothing to do with this equation. So by default, the father, the biological father, because he's part of the other family, he should be able to marry everyone in that family because they're strangers. His son has new laws, but not him. The suckling child gets new mahrams. Why his father? So does his cousin also get new mahrams? Does his uncle get? No. It's only him. He has a new family now. Like that. The reason is simple. Because we have a hadith from the imams. If it wasn't for the hadith, we would say these people are ajnabi. What is the biological father? I have a son, he has no milk. I give him to a family, breastfeed him. Now I can't marry your daughter? Why? My child had some milk from that lady. So why can't I marry the nursing mother's daughters now? Simply put, because the imams said so. Where did he say so? This is the hadith in front of you. Sahihat Ayyub ibn Nuh. It's sahih, authentic hadith. كتب علي بن شعيب إلى أبي الحسن امرأة أرضعت بعض ولدي هل يجوز لي أن أتزوج بعض ولدها؟ فكتب الإمام لا يجوز ذلك لك لأن ولدها صارت بمنزلة ولدك. This man asked the Imam, can I marry the daughter of my son's nursing mother? My son has a nursing mother. I want to marry her daughter. Now, don't think of her daughter being a baby. Let's say the nursing mother is 40 years old and her daughter is 20 years old. And I'm the biological father. I want to marry that 20-year-old daughter of my son's nursing mother. He asked the Imam this question. The Imam says, La, no. Why? Since he says her children, meaning the nursing mother's children, are like your children now. They're not your children, they're like your children because they are my son's siblings. Your son's sibling, even though they're not your children, but they're like your children. Because of this word like, the Imam says, no, they're not married. You're not allowed to marry those children. Now, the other question is, are you allowed to see them? The biological father, is he allowed to see the daughters of the nursing mother without hijab? There is disagreement between the ulama. Some ulama believe yes, like Sayyid Sistani, it appears from his, Minhaj al-Salihin that he permits. He says, yes, you can't marry, they can't marry, that means they can see each other. Sayyid al-Khu'i likewise, he says that they are mahram, they can see each other. But many other ulama have said no, because the hadith said no marriage. The hadith didn't say they can see each other. So it all goes back to this fact, this point. Is there, a law that says if you can't marry someone, you can see them? Some say yes, some say no. So like Sayyid Muhsin al-Hakim, I saw in his book, he's one of our maraja that died maybe 40, 50 years ago. He says no. The biological father cannot marry the daughters of the nursing mother, but can they see each other? They cannot see each other because we have no proof for that. So she's just like any other stranger that he cannot see her. Now, here there's a very, very tricky and interesting twist to this ruling number 2. If someone is stuck in a relationship with his wife and he can't get divorced, there's a very, very interesting way for him to get rid of this marriage. How? Imagine if you're married, you have a wife, and you have a child, a young baby. Your mother-in-law, meaning your wife's mother, because mother-in-law could mean the son's, the husband's mother also, right? We're not speaking about the husband's mother, the wife's mother. The mother-in-law also has a child. She's young, and her daughter is also young. So if I take my baby and I give the baby to his grandmother, his maternal grandmother, paternal doesn't work. Please breastfeed my child. What happens? My wife becomes haram on me. The marriage automatically goes down the drain, and not only the marriage is broken, not only is the marriage broken, but I can never marry my wife ever again. So that's why if someone wants to end his relationship, if he has a child and his mother-in-law also has a child, just take that child and tell your mother-in-law, just breastfeed it for a couple of days. Even if you want to, you can't marry your wife again. If they don't know, that's a different situation. We're speaking about if you know. If you don't know, we'll get to that. There's an entire chapter called Shubha. Anytime you don't know, you do a marriage wrong. We'll get to Shubha, inshallah. Now, why is that? It's because of this law, exactly. Who's the biological father? We said biological father cannot marry the daughters of the nursing mother. Who's the biological father? Me, the husband. Who's the nursing mother? My mother-in-law. Who's her daughters? My wife. I can't marry the nursing mother's daughters, which is my wife. Is it clear? I don't know for the students on Zoom. Is it clear why if the mother-in-law, the maternal mother-in-law breastfeeds my child, my wife becomes haram upon me? It's because of this second rule that you can see in front of you. Yes, Brother Ali.
But it seems the question that the Sahaba asked to the Imam was, can I هل يجوز لي أن أتزوج بعد ولدها؟
امرأة أرضع هل يجوز لي أن أتزوج بعد ولدها?
So it doesn't say necessarily anything about someone who's already pre-existing. There is already a marriage.
Yes, but at the same time, it's general. Anytime the Imam says a general statement and it has more than one application, more than one example, as long as the Imam didn't say, didn't put that if and when and put that condition, we can say it's a general clause. So all the words in the ahadith of the Imam are general unless the Imam himself puts a condition. So the Imam doesn't have to say, as long as what the Imam says, and especially look at the end of the hadith. The Imam says, لا يجوز لأن ولدها صارت بمنزلة ولدك. The Imam says, no, since her children are like your children. So now, her children, which is my wife, are like my children. I can't marry someone that's like my children. Even if I had married her, from now that's it, it's nullified. So this is what they call itlaq, general clause. You have to apply it to every application.
Another question, what if you don't want this? So let's say your mother-in-law doesn't want you married to her daughter. If she does this.
If she does that?
Yeah. And you know the ruling, but you didn't want this.
I guess I'm going to have to pay the price. If it happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So if there's an evil mother-in-law that wants to get rid of her son-in-law and put a permanent end to the marriage, if she has milk, she would have to also have a child, or else where's she going to get milk to breastfeed? She's young. Let's say she's 40 and her daughter is 20. That happens. Maybe here in the US it doesn't. In the Middle East it happens. So she has a child and her daughter has a child, her grandchild. She can go secretly breastfeed her with the conditions that we'll get to, and that's it. The marriage is completely destroyed. Now that would be, of course, haram, it would be a sin, but there are certain natural effects, consequences that happen, whether you want it or not, whether you knew or not. It's, they say just like poison. If I drink this, I don't know there's poison, it's going to kill me no matter what. They call this natural effects. So this is a natural effect of breastfeeding. Yes, sister.
Assuming they met all the conditions of the number of
exactly. Of course, every mas'ala we will mention when we say they become mahram, anything, it always has to be with the correct conditions. There's 4 conditions that I'll mention. I don't think I'll get to it today, inshallah, next week. As long as the 4 conditions are met, then of course, if the 4 conditions are met, nothing happens. This is just breastfeeding. It has absolutely no meaning in Islam. In the Shari'i terms, it has no legal effects. There's only a legal effect if the 4 conditions are met. That we'll get to next week. There's a special duration, a certain amount of time that the mother, nursing mother has to breastfeed, and so on and so forth. We'll get to that next week, inshallah. But however, so we said the biological father, he cannot marry the daughters of the nursing mother. How about the other way around? The nursing father, can he marry the daughters of the biological father? So just switch the positions. The nursing father wants to marry one of the daughters of the biological fathers of the biological, one of the daughters of the biological father of his nursing son. So now he has a nursing son because his wife breastfed a new baby. He's part of their family. This child has a sister, a biological sister. Can the nursing father marry her? Yes. Why? Because we have no hadith that says no. With the first mas'ala, when it's the biological father, the nursing mother's daughter, there's a clear hadith that says no. Here there is no clear hadith, so basically we go back to the general statement that you can marry anyone except your mahram, and that is not one of the mahram. Questions, but inshallah next week we will go over the 4 conditions that make the breastfeeding halal, or makes it have an effect. When does breastfeeding have all this effect and make someone mahram? There must be 4 conditions met. What are the 4 conditions? We'll speak about that. We'll also speak about some of the Sunni views regarding this that are interesting. This will all come inshallah next week. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. Inshallah we shall meet next week. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin.